What's up, guys? This video is about the Clever coffee dripper, which you can see here. I really like it because it allows me to make fresh coffee really quickly without needing to use a coffee machine, or maybe I don't even use the Keurig all that much anymore. And it's good for the weekdays where before work I don't really have time to use my presso to make like Americano or something with the espresso that comes out of it. So this is nice. I've used the cone type drip filters before. I know Maletta makes one, Hario makes one I think as well. They come in like plastic or ceramic. But the problem I had with those is that because it's just an open hole on the bottom, the coffee just constantly drips through it, which means that your grind size is a little more particular. If you don't have a very fine grind size, then the water tends to just run right through the coffee grinds and out the bottom of the hole, and you end up with a pretty weak brew. Conversely, if your grind is too fine, then what happens is your water doesn't flow through it at all, and you get a very overbrewed coffee. So this kind of solves that problem. And also another thing with the hole is you just had to stand there and watch it. And you had to constantly slowly pour water all over the grinds to make sure everything was even, which was kind of a pain in the ass. This solves this problem by basically having a valve on the bottom. You can see it used to be white, a little off-white. Now it's all discolored from all the coffee that's gone through it. But you can see that rubber piece moving up and down. That's because I'm actually pressing this bottom plate here, and what it's designed to do is when it's the right side up and you have coffee in there, this plate is up, so it blocks off the valve on the bottom. But when you want to have the coffee go through into your cup, it presses up against this plate, and then that valve opens up and allows the coffee to flow through. And what's nice about this is basically I can just fill this up with coffee grounds and water, let it just sit there and brew for the 4 minutes, and then once I put it onto the cup, I'll have freshly brewed coffee without the hassle of having to constantly pour over it, let the water flow through the coffee grinds, and then pour over it again. I do use Maletta coffee filters with it. The Clever takes number 4 size coffee filters, and number 4 size coffee filters are normally for 8 to 12 cup coffee machines, but it fits perfectly for this, and I find that the size is perfect for a 10-ounce cup of coffee. These Maletta filters are a little bit more expensive than some off-brand ones, or even the basket filters, depending on what type of coffee maker you have. But when I say expensive, it's relative. I got 6 100 boxes, or 100 packs for around $20 off of Amazon. So it's not that expensive per cup. It's still cheaper for you to buy all of this stuff, even buy a hand grinder, buy fresh coffee, and these filters, and brew your own coffee every day, than it is to go to a store like Starbucks and buy coffee. So to use this is pretty simple. You just kind of fold down the stamped edges and open it up, and it sits in nicely. You can see that the number 4 filters fit perfectly in. I'm gonna actually rinse this out quickly. And I have water boiling. So it's at a rolling boil now, and I'm just gonna let it sit to cool off. Generally for a cup of coffee I'll use around 20 to 22 grams of coffee. You can see I have it ground in my Hario. It actually works out to be just a little over that 1 cup line. I believe that 1 cup line is 16 to 18 ounces. And so it's nice and simple. You just basically dump it in there. You can, if you don't want to use freshly ground coffee, or you want to use a pre-ground or store ground coffee, it's fine. You can kind of see here the grind that I have. It's a little finer than store ground coffee, just because I feel it gives it a little richer of a flavor compared to store ground coffee. You know, I feel, you know, store ground coffee, the brew is slightly a little under extracted, and in all honesty, I'd rather over extract it a little bit and get a slight bitterness over the sourness. Generally, what people say is you should brew coffee for around 4 minutes, whether you're using a press or something like a cone filter. You brewed for around 4 minutes and you extract it, and that's like the perfect extracting time. So I have a stopwatch here. I usually time it after all the water has been poured in, and you can see here I don't really have to go super slow with how I pour. Yeah, that's around 10 ounces. So we'll start the timer. Because this is a finer grind, obviously when you place this onto the cup, it's going to take a bit of time before all the coffee flows through the coffee grinds and into the cup. And the finer grind you have, the more time it takes. Now, I know with this grind setting I have with the Hario, it'll take approximately 40 seconds for all the liquid to flow into the cup. So what happens is I'll actually start putting that onto the cup at around 3.5 minutes. And so basically by 4 minutes, 15 seconds, 4.5 minutes, all the coffee's already in the cup, so I don't feel that I over extract or under extract anything. And you can see here that, you know, even though the coffee is full in there, nothing flows out. It does come with like a little coaster / drip tray that I tend to use, because sometimes what happens is you'll use it and then there's still a few drips of coffee on there, and you'll put it on your counter and it'll just, you know, it'll drip onto your counter. The coaster is nice, it drips into the coaster. It also comes with a cover, which unfortunately broke during shipping. Like it didn't really break completely, it just cracked. I might end up super gluing it to, you know, get it nice. But what it does is, you know, it allows you to cover it and keep all the heat in. I'm not terribly concerned because it's still, you know, the beginning of fall. It is a little cold, so I'm wearing a soft shell. But, you know, for the winter, it's suggested that you use the cover just so you keep the water, you try and maintain the water temperature where it's at, and you don't let the water cool down, resulting in under extraction. And usually around halfway through the brew period, I like to just, you know, they suggest like 1.5 minutes or whatever. I wait till like halfway through, and I just kind of stir the coffee grounds and the water around a little bit, like so. I used to use a French press, and French presses are nice. But the thing with French presses is because the bottom screen is usually metal, it's not super fine. You know, it's definitely, it doesn't filter as well as paper filters do. Obviously with a metal screen you do get better crema, but in my opinion for drip coffee, I'm not overly concerned about crema like I am when I'm trying to drink espresso. And they're a pain in the ass to clean, you know, in my opinion. The last coffee press I actually had coffee grinds in there, and I completely forgot about it for a few days, and then there was like mold growing in the coffee. So it was like one of those $20 small Bodems, and I just threw it out. I've had it for several years already. I probably could have cleaned it, but why take the chance? And because it was a French press and because of the sludge, I wasn't using it all that much. But this brewing method kind of gives you the best of both the drip style cones and the French press, because it is literally sitting here and extracting for the 4 minutes versus when you're using those flow-through styles where it's kind of brewing through it, but the coffee that doesn't come out, it's not completely consistent. Like obviously the liquid that's coming out at first is a little stronger, and here we are at the 3.5 minute mark. So I'm just gonna put this onto the cup. And what was I saying? Oh, the coffee that comes out in the beginning of those cone style drippers, they're usually stronger, and then towards the end they get weaker because obviously the beans have already extracted more than they were in the beginning. So with this, at least the coffee that comes out at the very end is nice and consistent. And you can see here, it's almost completely drained. Once the coffee will start flowing out relatively quickly at first, but once the coffee grind starts settling to the bottom of the filter, it tends to slow down a little bit. At that point, I'm not overly concerned about how long it takes for that water to go through into the cup, because most of the liquid has already been out into the cup, and it's just maybe like an ounce or two that's left over extracting in the beans. So 4.5 minute mark, you can see here it's mostly coffee grounds. And at this point, like, I have a full cup of coffee, so I can just take this off, shake it a little bit to get the drip, and there we go. So, you guys who drink coffee, you should definitely look into this. It's nice if you're trying to make a single cup of coffee for yourself, because, obviously it doesn't really have multi-cup capacity. It's meant for single serve. Although I suppose if you want to do multi-cup capacity, you could refill it, but then you'd have to let your water heat up to a boil again and everything, so it's kind of a pain in the ass. But it's definitely a good alternative to the regular drip style Molettas. It's really nice against the Keurigs. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the Keurigs. I might end up selling it. I feel like it's a waste of, it was like $130 when I bought it, but I used it for like a good year, I suppose, so it's not terrible. But this thing I got off of Amazon for $15. You can buy this off of websites online and everything for $20, which is pretty darn cheap. I think those regular cones that flow through, those you can get for like $5 to $7, and honestly, with fresh coffee, you can make better coffee with those than you can with a Keurig. The nice thing about the Keurig is the convenience of it all. I still have some pods left over, and for me with the Keurig, I don't really have to think about it. I don't have to spend the time to grind it or spend the time brewing. I just turn it on, let the water boil up, and then throw in a pot in there, press the button, and it starts flowing into my mug in the morning, and I have coffee in the morning. But because I don't really drink coffee daily anymore, I don't really use it. I haven't used my Keurig for maybe around 2 weeks. I might keep it around still just for company. If let's say I have people over and they wake up before I do and they don't want to deal with all this, or they don't know how to deal with all of it, then they can make coffee easily with the Keurig. Or I might just keep it for flavored coffees. I don't, I buy whole beans. I have whole beans there and some back there behind the blender. And I ended up buying one of those Eco Brew, Esco Brew, whatever things, where you're supposed to be able to put store ground coffee or freshly ground coffee into that pod, reusable pod. You put it into the Keurig and it's supposed to work. I haven't got it to work properly. It always overfills. Even with store brand ground, they say that that's the best grind for having a nice consistent flow through. Couldn't get it. It always squirted out from the edges of the basket. And I tried different grind settings with the Hario as well, between finer and coarser. And with the coarser grind, it still overflowed a little bit, but at the same time, the coffee was very under extracted. So I definitely wouldn't suggest you get the Esco Brew, because that thing was like $12. You might as well just spend the money and buy one of these clever coffee cones. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely, if you're into coffee, you should check it out. It's a good alternative to a French press. It's actually cheaper than a French press, but one of the benefits of a French press, I guess, is that you can't get the larger sizes, which you can make coffee for multiple people. Versus with this is just single cups. They don't make a larger size clever. And you can also brew other things like tea in it, I suppose. You can use a filter, throw your tea leaves in there, brew your tea, and then do it. I know certain tea stores online, they do sell something very similar to this. It's not really a cone shape, it's more of like a French press design, except on the bottom there's a metal sleeve, and then there's also the same type of controllable valve that opens up when you put your cup, when you put the thing over your cup. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.